there is something that some of your listeners may have never heard of, which is accelerated TMS. TMS stands for transcranial magnetic stimulation. It's a type of brain stimulation that has existed for decades, but the hardware and the software, everything about these technologies has improved dramatically in the last 5 to 10 years, particularly in, I would say, the last 5 years. Thanks to certain researchers like Nolan Williams out of Stanford, who sadly passed away in the last 6 months, and others. But what accelerated TMS looks like is typically up to, let's just call it maybe 1 or 2 years ago. Accelerated TMS takes what you might do in conventional TMS over several months, where you go in and you have this paddle put against your head. It produces a magnetic field that, just to keep it very simple, either excites or inhibits certain parts of your brain, certain types of circuitry, and that can be applied to depression. It can be applied to neurodegenerative diseases. In fact, in some cases, it can be applied to anxiety, OCD, and so on, depending on the target where you place these coils. And in the case of accelerated TMS, you're taking what you might do over 3, 4, 5 months, and you're compressing it into 1 week. So every hour on the hour, 10 hours a day for 1 week, you're going in and getting, let's just call it a few minutes, 3 to 9 minutes of pulses on your brain. And then you take 50 minutes off, you go back in, you get hit again. And that has been referred to, at least in one format, the SAINT protocol, SAINT. They've shied away from it, but it was developed at Stanford. And the SAINT protocol in many, let's call them patients, produces 70, 80% remission of depression. That is quite durable. It's not one shot, you're done. Typically, people will, let's just say, do a 5-day sequence, then they might go in and have 1 to 3 day booster sequences 3 months, 6 months later. And this technology has tremendous effects. I've experimented with this over the last handful of years, and the first time I did it, it had near miraculous results. I went from having severe, and I've been officially diagnosed, so this is not just throwing it around loosely, but moderate severe OCD with lots of rumination. I'm not flipping light switches or washing my hands, but I have these ruminative loops that I get caught in. People, I'm sure some listening can identify with this, where you just can't turn off these kind of compulsive thought loops. Could be a grudge, could be a fear, could be something you're planning for, could be a conversation you need to have. It just loops and loops and loops, which causes insomnia, which causes fatigue, and just the general wearing down of the system, which leads to depression. I've realized that's my sequence. It actually starts with anxiety, not depression out of the gate. And I was having, let's just call it 7, 8 out of 10 symptoms when I went in to the first treatment I did of 5 days. That's really severe for people who are not clear. Like, it's really, really severe. Like, it's affecting every aspect of my life. Had the treatment, there was a delayed onset, and even the scientists most involved with this don't really have a great explanation for how or why this would happen. But nothing really happened for 2-3 weeks, and then flipped a switch and had basically zero anxiety, zero rumination for, let's call it 3 to 4 months. I've never experienced anything like it. And that includes psychedelic assisted therapies, which I know very well, and have supported a lot of science underlying. Now, this is a bit of a long answer, I realize, but for people who are interested, I really recommend the conversation I did with Nolan Williams. Then there are different types of hardware. But I tried it then with boosters several times afterwards. Null effect, zero, didn't work. And I started to lose hope again, because I thought this was going to be a replicable, reliable tool that I could use. I was so excited. And then I did a Hail Mary kind of last-ditch round with the accelerated TMS recently. I did this in Northern California, and instead of doing 5 days, so keep in mind, it's like, let's just call it 3 months of TMS gets compressed into 5 days. Instead of doing 5 days, I did 1 day, but I pre-dosed with something called D-cycloserine. And D-cycloserine, or DCS, as it's sometimes referred to in the literature, is in many ways an antiquated antibiotic that used to be used for tuberculosis and sometimes urinary tract infections, which affects the NMDA receptors in such a way. I think it's a partial antagonist. It might be an agonist, so don't quote me on it. But the point is, this little drug that is not typically used anymore is a catalyst for neuroplasticity. And when you take this beforehand, you can do something like 1 day of accelerated TMS, and sometimes the results are better than what you previously, let's just call it 7 years ago, would get from 3-4 months. And I did 1 day, and Dan, this time around, boom, it was just like a switch, basically the next day. And it has now been 2 or 3 months. And I don't want to set expectations that it'll be this way for everyone. It seems to be particularly effective, yes, for depression, but it seems to be particularly effective in a very small sample size at this point for anxiety and OCD. Man, it's just a different life. It is a different life. So all of those things in combination, plus the basics, right? The kind of basic macronutrients of health, exercise, et cetera, diet, and so on, are just doing their job together. The last one I'll throw in, and then I'll shut up because I realize this has turned into a TED Talk, is intermittent ketosis. So the ketogenic diet and ketosis overall, which can be achieved a few different ways, which I'm in right now, is absolutely phenomenal for addressing a lot of psychiatric pains, psycho-emotional pains that are failing to be treated by medication. And there's something called metabolic psychiatry. Chris Palmer out of Harvard and others have looked at this very closely. All right. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
I just want to assure you, TED Talks are welcome here. Yeah, you're a podcaster. Long answers are fine. So please delete that sheepishness from your mind.
All right, will do.
I have a million follow-up questions. Let me just say, just high level, a different life, those 3 words really, it just makes me very happy to hear that.
Thank you.
What's going on for you.
Thank you, Dan. Yeah, it is impossible, I think, to overstate the difference between an 8 out of 10 of nonstop ruminative monkey mind with a fixation on things that are anxiety producing to getting to like a 1 or 2 out of 10. Like those are 2 different lived experiences. They are not, they are so far apart from each other. It's really remarkable.